Hello again everybody, and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. I started to question myself the other day. I have always, or very often, shot images where the exposures are bracketed, so I always shoot 3 or possibly 4 images with slightly different exposures and then combine them together afterwards. And I found that tends to work quite well where you've got a high dynamic range in the scene. But also I was questioning whether or not using graduated neutral density filters would be a better option. So I've decided to come out today and actually experiment with the two. I'm going to shoot an image here, this scene behind me, using bracketed exposures and create an HDR image afterwards to see how that works out. And then I'm also going to move on and try and take a couple of shots using graduated neutral density filters, and I'll show you those a little bit later on when I'm shooting those images, and see if that makes any difference to the shot. But for now I'm going to set up here and take this shot. That first image was shot with an aperture of f11. And I focused about a third of the way into the image so that everything would be sharply in focus. I also shot 3 separate exposures with exposure times of between 1/15th of a second and 1/60th of a second, and then I'll combine those 3 exposures together to get the best exposure in all 3 situations combined into one image, so you get an even exposure throughout the image, and that gives you the HDR effects as well, which I quite like. But there is another way, of course, which involves graduated neutral density filters, and I'll show you that now. That is an ND grad. I don't know if you can see that properly. If I hold that up to the light like that, you'll see that the top end of the filter is darker than the bottom end, and that's a gradual easing from the top to bottom. As you get to the bottom it becomes a lot brighter, and the reason for that is that can be used then to block out some of that lighter sky at the top of the image, and what that will do is it will bring that exposure down on the sky, and I can expose correctly for the foreground. And what that will do then is I'll have a balanced exposure right throughout the image, and I'll be able to do that with just one shot rather than doing 3 separate shots or 4 separate shots even, and then combining those together afterwards. So one shot with an ND grad will be a lot easier than trying to shoot 3. Now I actually took that image twice, and I'll quickly explain why. I have a set of 3 graduated neutral density filters, or ND grads for short, and in each case the filtration at the top of the filter gets very slightly darker each time you move to the next filter. So there's a 1-stop, a 2-stop and a 3-stop ND grad in the pack, and what I discovered was, as I was taking the shot, when I looked at it on the back of the camera, I thought that the top of the shot was still a little bit too light, having used the lightest of the filters. So I've switched over to the 2-stop ND filter, graduated ND, and used that instead. I'm not entirely sure which of the images I like the best, but you'll notice from those images that they quite clearly, it's just one image that I've taken, and they have a fairly balanced exposure in both cases because the filter has taken effect at the top end of the image where the lightest part of the sky is. I've come to another spot just a few hundred yards away from where I was before, because this is quite a nice little spot that I like. We've got a composition here where we've got these wooden groins on the surface of this pond just sticking up here, and then behind them we've got all these trees at the back of the pond, and I think I'm going to try and shoot a wide angle shot here which captures these groins, some of the water, the trees and the light of the sky above. So I'm going to have to get down quite low on the tripod for this shot so that I can kind of shoot slightly upwards, tilt the camera slightly upwards, and that will give me a better shot here. But this is going to be another shot where the exposures are bracketed, so there'll be 3, possibly 4 different shots at different exposures, which will then be combined at the end of the day. That last image that I've just shown you was taken using the HDR effect, where I bracket the 3 images and then combine them together at the end. But with this one I want to try and use the ND Grad once again, and I think I've got 2 shots here. I've walked around just another couple of 100 yards to the other side of this pond that I was shooting at, and I found a couple of compositions behind me which look good. Just behind me here at the other side of the pond there's this line of trees here, and that looks quite good, and that will be perfect for adding the ND Grad to the top of the image so that it kind of brings down the exposure of the lightest part of the image just here. But then also, as I shift around slightly, there's a nice image here where these trees come back towards the pond, and as you can see they kind of dip in the middle. Now I don't really want to capture this section here in the image, this section of trees here in the image, but I want to try and capture from here along to about here, and I'll do that with a wide angle lens. But obviously the best thing about the ND Grad is it can be turned round slightly on the front of the lens, so I can actually tilt it in line with this line of trees here. So I'm going to try those 2 shots now. So I hope you've enjoyed these images. I've certainly enjoyed getting out and about once again to take some photos. It's been an interesting morning. That final image, well, those 2 final images were both shot with the ND Grads in mind. I tried the first one with a 2-stop ND Grad, but I didn't think that really captured the moodiness and the darkness of that sky above us. So I decided to switch to the 3-stop ND Grad, which brought that moodiness and darkness a little bit further down, so it made it a little bit darker. And that was slightly more interesting. So I've captured those 2 shots. I hope you like those as well. That is the end of today's vlog. Thank you once again for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please remember to hit that like button, and please remember to subscribe as well. And I shall see you again on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.